Okay, we're continuing with quotes in alphabetical order. We're on Kiyosaki now. Robert Kiyosaki, born in 1947. He's still alive. He is the guy who wrote the great book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a magnificent book. Every single high school kid should read that book. It reminds me of a conversation. My kid was in high school, and he became interested in money. And he's like, Dad, what do I got to know? What's the most important thing I got to know so I could become rich? And his mother was standing right over there in the same room. And I said, well, probably the most important thing is don't have kids. And my wife's like, you're such an asshole. Why do you talk to them like that? And I said, yeah, and the other thing is, don't get married. So anyways, I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad is great advice for a kid. Because what most parents do, same thing that was told to me, they say, just go to school, try to get good grades, and you get a good job. But it's much wiser to start learning about money while you're young. What's involved in starting your own business. Even if you fail the first couple of times, start them while you're still young, living at home, mooching off your parents. And then you'll maybe figure it out after a couple tries and have a lot more independence than the rest of us. Okay, so Kiyosaki. Intelligence is the ability to make finer distinctions. Intelligence is the ability to solve problems. The most successful people in life are the ones who ask questions. They're always learning, they're always growing, they're always pushing. That sounds a little bit like what Feynman would say about developing the intellect. The person who asks questions is the person who doesn't want to be average. They want to go beyond just the minimum. Okay, Kiyosaki, if you want to be rich, simply serve more people. Don't do anything for money you will make, but instead for the skills you will learn. Yeah, like when you go for your training, go to the place where you get the most training. For example, when I was in residency, we rotated through one hospital, which is for all the rich people, okay? And then we rotated through another hospital, which is for the poor people. And most people like going to the rich hospital because you had it really easy. You kind of just sit around. But I hated it because they don't let you do anything. I wanted, become an imaging guided surgeon. And so I go to the poor people hospital. I was able to do, I was doing cerebral arteriograms unassisted as a junior resident. And that's rare in the program where I came from, but it was because nobody wanted to do the case. They don't have much staff. At a rich hospital, there's tons of staff. There's attendings, there's fellows, senior residents. Everybody is there. At the poor hospital, nobody wants to go there. So if you're a junior guy and you're willing to work, you can do a lot of stuff and you develop a lot of skills. Okay, the next one. In most cases, when people make more money, they get deeper into debt. And that is why money alone doesn't make you rich, especially if you're married and your wife spends all of it. Your car should be a classroom. Yeah, I think you should always listen to a book in your car or a podcast, something that you're developing your brain. It's stupid to be listening to music. After a while, you've heard all the songs. It's the same crap over and over. The news is the same crap over and over again. But you can go through tons of books. Typical person drives. You can go through about one book a week, the average person. That's a lot of learning. And there's tons of free books on the internet. You don't have to spend money. Okay, Kiyosaki. If you look at the way humans are designed to learn, we learn by making mistakes. We learn to walk by falling down. If you never fall down, we never would walk. Failure is part of the process of success. If you avoid failure, you also avoid success. Yeah, that's why I think starting your own business, most of them are going to fail, but fail, again, while you're living at home with your parents, and by the time you're ready to move out, you can figure it out. Kiyosaki, never say you can't afford something. Always ask how. Okay? Next thing is, the number one thing people can do to increase their wealth is to start a part-time business. Okay? Okay, let's see. Why am I doing this here? Start a part-time business. Oh, and you also can get other benefits from starting a part-time business. What I mean by that is, even if it's not a business, for example, just having a YouTube channel. You would say, like, people tell me I'm a stupid idiot. Why do I waste time making a YouTube channel? I could be moonlighting, making a lot more money, and they don't realize maybe I'm sick of working all day long in conventional medicine. The last thing I want to do is spend all my weekends working more in conventional medicine. I told you I was reading a comic book in the kitchen many, many years ago, and my wife comes by and says, "Why the hell are you reading that crap? Why don't you go get a moonlighting job and make more money for the family?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, right, so you can divorce me and take more money from me?" I kind of knew she might divorce me down the road earlier. I was surprised when it actually happened because it was after being married for like 28 years. But early on, I was expecting that she might. So I was sort of like, I didn't want to get my salary any higher than it had to be because I knew I'd end up paying more alimony. But anyways, I said, no, thank you. I think I'll just read my joke book at that time. But now what I'm also saying is things happen for you socially. It's sort of like I don't make any money with this channel, but I make a lot of friends from this that I've had fun and I've enjoyed doing it. And I feel good about it, you know. Conventional medicine makes money. It pays the bills. But this, I feel like I'm really helping people more than I do with conventional medicine. It also helped me attract a girlfriend because everybody has their own natural environment. Like if I go to a bar, I'm invisible. Okay, I'm kind of short. I'm only 5'9", all right? And, you know, I'm not that good of a dancer at all. And it's noisy. You can't really talk. So in a bar, I'm invisible. I could go to a bar every day for 100 years and never meet anybody. But on the internet, you know, I got my own little show. I can do my own thing that I'm good at. I just talk about stuff I like. And like when I first met my girlfriend, that was, you know, she thought she's real skeptical on the phone. I said, just watch my YouTube videos, look at my books, and you'll see I'm for real. She calls me back the next day, let's go for coffee. So what I'm saying is, no money, but you can have a lot of fun with it. I like it. I like having this YouTube channel. I feel like I'm helping people, and I'm sort of like keeping the truth alive. I'm like a continuation of the Irish monks who saved civilization, because the truth is very fragile and weak. It's not a strong thing. And, you know, to keep it alive, that's a valuable thing. Just like the monks kept alive the Bible and the books of the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, I'm keeping alive the truth and nutrition from Kempner and McDougall and Pritikin and Burkitt and Swank and Richard Moore and Gregory Sloop and all the other ones that have done good things, you know, so it doesn't die. And, you know, probably someday it'll be allowed again. Right now, man, big business, it hates all this low-fat vegan stuff. There's no money in this. It hates the pros. Pros don't even understand how much they're hated. Okay, let's continue with Robert Kiyosaki. He says, we are not taught financial literacy in school. It takes a lot of work and time to become financially literate. Money doesn't make you rich. Asset makes you rich. So you want to get assets, okay? All right, people ask me, what is my advice for the average investor? My advice is don't be an average investor. Okay, a real teacher practices what they preach. To become wealthy, it helps a lot to learn about money. Yep, you know, if you want anything you want to be good at, you got to talk about it. Some people think it's vulgar and rude to talk about money. Well, if you want to be good at making money, you're going to talk about it a lot. You know, whatever you want to be good at, you should be talking about it. Okay, now we're going to talk about Arthur Koestler. He lived from 1905 to 1983. And he is a guy who earlier in his life, he had joined the Communist Party. And then when he saw how evil they were, like in Soviet Russia, then he was disgusted with the whole thing and he left the Communist Party. Here's some of his quotes. Pedantic academic mediocrities have low intelligence and high emotionality. Oh yeah, doesn't that sound like a typical socialist college professor? Okay, the real achievement in discoveries is seeing an analogy where no one saw it before. The essence of discovery is that unlikely marriage of cabbages and kings, of previously unrelated frames of references, whose union will solve the previously insoluble problem. The creative act does not create something out of nothing. It uncovers, selects, reshuffles, combines, synthesizes already existing facts, ideas, faculties, and skills. Some of the greatest discoveries consist mainly in clearing away the psychological roadblocks which obstruct the approach to reality. And that is why post factum they appear so obvious. That is totally true. Like Watson and Crick, they didn't really do any big research to discover anything. They just took what was around and figured it out and put it all together. Arthur Koestler, the more original a discovery, the more obvious it seems afterwards. Okay, Koestler, I went to communism as one goes to a spring of fresh water. And I left communism as one climbs out of a poisoned river strewn with the wreckage of destroyed cities and the corpses of the drowned. The suppression of all criticism, the insistence of unconditional assent, the dictatorship of the word has wrought immeasurably greater havoc than any kind of free and responsible criticism has ever done. the most persistent sound which reverberates through history is the beating of war drums. And I think that's a good quote. The most consistent sound through history is always war, war, war. And it always comes from some power-hungry ruler. And like Douglas MacArthur said, the most common cause of war is undefended wealth. So they look at their neighbor next door and they say, our neighbor's a fucking wimp. He's got stuff we want. Let's go kick his ass and take it. Well, everybody would get pissed off if we just kick his ass and take his stuff. So let's just say he's a homicidal maniac. He's getting ready to attack us. We better attack him first. Okay. So that's what they do. That's pretty much almost all wars. Okay. And you can take a people, and as they become weak, you're like, look at these white Christians. They got all this money, all this stuff they built up, and they've turned into a bunch of feminized wussies. Let's kick their ass and take their stuff. Okay. So that's pretty much what it comes down to. And once the people turn away from God, they're no longer united. They no longer have community. They no longer have noble masculinity guiding them. And they're very easy to conquer, And feminism makes a society really weak. Okay, the women don't want to have babies. They divorce all their husbands, make all their husbands poor, run around like crazy people, open the you-know-what down south. So anyways, okay, next line from Koestler. God seems to have left the phone off the hook and time is running out. Yeah, people are wondering, okay, God, what are you going to do? Are you going to save Western civilization? Or are you just going to come after us destroyed and then, we'll have the second judgment? Please save it. Okay, Wolfgang Kohler. He's famous for talking about insight learning. He lived from 1887 to 1967. He said, insight learning refers to learning by sudden insight with an epiphany or a eureka moment like Archimedes' bath or Newton's apple. There's an online video of some chimpanzees who stack boxes to get at bananas which are suspended from above. The chimps persisted like they knew it was going to work, like they had insight, the ability to perceive the implementation of a plausible plan. Yeah, and chimps are not that smart. They say that they're our nearest relative. Chimps can't even count, okay? They're pretty dumb. Okay, Wolfgang Kohler continues. It would be interesting to inquire how many times essential advances in science have first been made possible by the fact that boundaries of special disciplines were not respected. Trespassing is one of the most successful techniques in science. Yeah, the way you get good at a field is you learn your field, but then you got to learn all the fields right next to it, and then you can put everything together. Most doctors never do that. I would say about 1% reads in other fields and learns other fields because there's no money in it. In medicine, you pretty much have a stereotyped pathway. Do these things in this field. These are the billing codes. Generate the billing codes, you will get paid. If you do something that does not generate a billing code, you don't get paid. And nobody's going to fund your research for curing the patients. No one cares about that. Can you make a drug we can sell? People care about that. Can you make a device we can sell? People care about that. Curing the patients, the peasants, no one cares about them. Okay, Rudolf Carnap. If one is interested in the relations between fields, which according to customary academic divisions belong to different departments, then he will not be welcomed as a builder of bridges, as he might have expected, but he will rather be regarded by both sides as an intruder, a troublesome intruder, an outsider. Yeah, that's totally true. I've had that experience. You're not welcome when you go asking questions of people in other fields. They're like, what are you up to? What are you trying to do? They don't like it. Anyways, I hope you found these quotes helpful.